I want to talk about how to make learning stick. And this comes from a book called Make It Stick, which is the science of successful learning. So from this book, they talk about two different processes that come from learning. The first process is this process of bringing things into our mind. Think of this as exposure. Exposure can take on several different forms. Exposure could be through reading, through listening, through watching, and many other ways. And so we think about exposure and we think about how it relates to our class. Reading the textbook, that is a process of exposure. Listening to lectures, that's a process of exposure. Watching videos of those lectures, that's this process of exposure. But the second process is what's really important, and that is this ability to recall those things that you've been exposed to. And when we think, the reason why recall is so very important is when we think of exams, exams are designed to test our ability to recall. So things we can do to practice recall, one is you can take notes in class. And this is one reason why taking notes by hand is so important, is because you can't type as fast, and so you're forced to think about, of all the material I've been exposed to, what's the most important? You have to prioritize it, and so it helps you with that recall method. Other things is to summarize. So after you come to class and you listen to class, you watch the videos in class, think about summarizing what was learned. Create your own summary sheet of what was just covered, and that will help you recall. Another thing students really ask me a lot is, can you provide me a study guide? And my answer is no, and that's because when you create your own study guides, it's forcing you to focus on recall and not on exposure. Reading a study guide from your professor, so I'll put a professor study guide over here, is focused more on exposure, but you've already have a lot of exposure. You need to focus on that recall. One of the best ways to recall is actually try to teach. And this is where study groups can be very effective, is you have to teach each other to try to remember and recall the things that you've learned. Now, in terms of recall, a couple things that are really important to note about recall. And that is, first, consistent is really important. That means not just practice it once, but to consistently practice. So as I design my course, I really try to design it in a way that consistently has you to be exposed to material and try to recall it. Read a chapter, take a reading quiz. Listen to class, take a quiz during class. Here's a problem, come to class, read the chapter, listen, watch the videos, and then try to recall through problem sets. And so this is a way to try to consistently to engage all these things. And so that's really important, is that consistent. So this is where it's recommended is spend time each day. Rather than try to cram it all in 1 or 2 days, try to spend time each day on this material. It's also, a lot of the evidence is really interesting, is that it's helpful to forget a little and then try to recall. And so part of that is this process of trying to improve your ability to recall. And so oftentimes what you hear the word is restudy, is focused on trying to do things that help you to restudy. So it's not just do it all at once, but let time set in and then restudy. So another key component to recall is time. So as you think about how you approach this class and how you prepare for the exams, I really want to encourage you to think about the different ways that you expose yourself to this material. That is really important. But don't stop there. Think about how you also are trying to do things to help you recall the things you've been exposed to. And many times we focus less on this recall. And so maybe this is a call of action for you to try to spend more time on activities that help you recall. And I think that will help you out a lot more as you try to prepare for the thing that might be most important for you, and that is an exam.